LIC. We value their support, and without it, our events, both online and on farm, just wouldn't be possible. Planning's underway for the new Smash season. We're looking forward to announcing new dates for on-farm events throughout the country, as well as more online sessions. So keep an eye on our Facebook page for new dates. Feed has been tight this winter. It's even more critical you get a handle on your spring feed planning. So today, Frank Portegys from DairyNZ is going to catch up with Waikato farmers Bart van der Ven and Michael Woodward about what's happening in their operations, what their current feed situation is, and how winter has panned out for them so far, plus lots more as well. Bart and Vanessa are 50-50 share milkers, 205 cows, System 1 at Springdale, which is near Morrinsville, and Michael and Susie Woodward are farm owners milking 300 cows once a day near Otorohanga. Frank almost needs no introduction. He's in the EP with DairyNZ for Cambridge and Pirongia, and he's had around 11 years history with DairyNZ. He was also farming at Scotsman's Valley in Tofori for about 12 seasons. Frank, Woody and Bart are going to be thrilled to answer all of your questions. So make sure you write them in the comments section on Facebook or sign into YouTube if you're watching there. And with that, I'll hand over to Frank.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. Now, I've just got to put my slides back up here again and pick the one I want. Right, is that? Oh, there they are there. All right, so I thought we'd just start off, just get a handle on where Bart and Michael are at in terms of the feed situation. Anne-Marie will give you an overview of the farm, and you can see some of their figures on there. So I'll just slip on to the next slide. If I can get my clicker to work. Try that mouse.
It's all worked so well before, Frank.
It was working so well before. Okay, we'll flag the slides then, eh? How's that? Bart, you want to give us a rundown on your feed situation at the moment? We've had sort of quite a tough autumn. It was sort of long and dry, and a lot of farmers sort of struggled to build feed up. So, how are you placed at the moment in terms of feeds on your farm?
I'll just go back a little bit in sort of April, where we sort of made the decision that we'd waited long enough looking or trying to find rain, and it just wasn't coming. And being a System 1, we sort of bit the bullet and dried off, hoping that all was going to be well, towards the end of May again. But we dried off on the 6th of April. The rain never came. We got to May, and stress levels were high on us and the cows. So we bit the bullet and got an 80-ton palm kernel infusion contract. We finally got some decent rain in May, but even on the 1st of June, I think our cover was still only 1,700. So, stress levels again were pretty high. So no grass. Cows are starting to look all right with the palm kernel and stuff. Weekly pasture plate meters were done, and come till now we're hovering around that 2,300 cover, which has been phenomenal really when you look back how much grass we've grown over these last 2 months, and we're growing better than we ever have. So maybe the grass grows grass has some truths in it, but at the moment we are in our second week of calving, at the end of our second week, and we've calved half of our cows. And with a growth rate of 40, the week just been, it's all seemingly looking almost better than last year when we were having a 2,600 cover. So cows are actually producing more. Now, I don't know what that is, what the palm kernel maybe, and the fact that there's more quality in the grass. There's not much dead matter in a paddock. They're going into about 3,000 now, whereas last year the milkers are going into 4,000. So all in all, doing really well. Yeah, at the moment. But damn, we've gone through some hell. It's been one of the toughest seasons I've ever had, cow-wise and definitely mentally.
Yeah. So your cover's actually increased over the last 2 weeks. I think when I spoke to you last, your cover was sort of just over 2.2, wasn't it? So.
Yeah, it's been weird because I've never had a calving where I've started calving and the cover's actually gone up instead of usually it just slowly goes down. But this year seems to be a different way, and it's a good way. I'm all here for it.
Yep. And the farm kennel, the farm Jimmy doesn't bring any supplements on, so that
hasn't bought in a kg of supplement in the last 25 years, and so this is the first time we've sort of ever have done it. And tell you what, it's been a blessing, really, to be honest, because if we hadn't have done it, I mean, I would have hated to have known what the situation would be like now. Not only the fact that we're trying to get a bit of milk out of these cows, but my main concern is trying to get these cows back into calf again. We've got very high 6-week calf rates and very low empty rates, and I didn't want to ruin that. So a large part of the reason why we got in all that feed is to continue farming, even though we're running a loss, of course, these last 3 months. But at least I know that by looking at our cows now, they're going to get in calf again, and it's all just back in the game.
Okay, thanks, Bart. And what about you? How was your autumn panned out, and so how you placed at the moment from a feed situation point of view?
Yeah, so we're probably sort of 2 weeks behind where Bart was, or 2 or 3 weeks. So we same thing, sort of brought in a bit of feed to get us through the dry, or the usual dry sort of early autumn, and then when it kept coming, decided to dry everything off. I think we're all done by about the 2nd of May, around there sort of thing. So, and whereas you'd asked me a month before that, we were going to milk through to the end of May quite comfortably. And so just the rain that came never sort of hung around. And so the decision was made more around grass covers than body condition. Body condition on the cows at the time was still pretty good. But so all dry, ended up still getting no or bugger all growth through that May piece. Used probably 30 tonne of our winter sort of hay and straw, just trying to keep the cows sort of ticking through and not not taking up too much or not destroying the paddocks, and probably cost ourselves a bit of body condition score just trying to hold areas at that stage. And so sort of fast forward through to now, through the winter we've sort of kept more of a 70-day round, so just sort of a light jog around the farm rather than sort of hard stop, which has worked for us in the past. And we're sort of we're sitting just over 20, well, around 2100 cover at the moment. Like Bart though, the grass is growing, and we are gaining slowly on that. Just depends on how much rain comes through on the day. But cows at the moment are probably half a condition score lighter than where they would be previous seasons. But we've sort of got the same issue with Bart, is that when we do calve, we calve slightly later, so 1st of August calving for the main herd, and we're on once a day as well. When with the in calf rates sort of around that 86% 6-week in calf rate, plus our heifers calving early, we do transition from a dry herd to a milking herd pretty quick. And so while we've got a few extra days up our sleeve, we'll need that cover coming at us to make sure we can keep up with the demand of the milkers. So that's going to be where our biggest push is going to be. But and with not much supplement on hand, we'll sort of be reliant on a bit of feed going through the shed to try and get us through the spring a bit more comfortably.
And you also purchased extra feed.
We did. We had the opportunity to buy about 180 bales early May that we had first turned our nose up at, but thankfully bought it in the end, and I think that's definitely saved our bacon on the way through. That got us through to sort of June, but by that stage we'd already bought in another load of straw out of the Hawke's Bay, and we've just received another sort of 30 tons of ryegrass straw out of Canterbury, which is mainly just not so much to sort of put weight on cows, but just keep cows happy on the grass that they're getting now, just till we start growing again. And so with all of that, we should be able to get through comfortably now to our sort of break-even point. Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, you said your cover was about 2,100. Where's it sitting at the moment?
Yeah, it's still there. Maybe it depends on if the sun's shining. If it's shining, it's probably above 2,100. But if it's raining like it has been, it's about 2,050 probably. So, yeah, we're not too bad. But and like Bart said, quality's fantastic around the place. There's no issues with quality. Yeah, just be nice with a little bit more quantity. But we've sort of got a good plan now for our dry cows. They'll be well taken care of going through that spring of mob. It'll be it's just more looking after the pastures now for the milkers, and so we've stood off more this winter than we had the total 3 years combined before now. But I think it's paid dividends in terms of the paddocks that have been grazed are definitely coming back fast. We got some late urea on for us, so which was late May. Usually we wouldn't put any food on in May, but just didn't have the moisture to put anything on. So that's sort of starting to really, that's definitely helped get us through. And yeah, we've ordered a chopper's worth of fert, or a couple of choppers worth of fert to come through next week. So that'll hopefully kickstart us in a couple of weeks, ready for that milkers peak demand coming through.
Yeah. And so that fert, is that predominantly nitrogen or?
Yeah, it's a ammo mix. So just a bit of sulfur.
Sulfur, ammonia, and urea.
Yep. Going on at about 85 kilos a hectare. So yeah, that'll go across the whole platform. So we do have we are fully self-contained, but we'll do a blanket of the farm just to make sure that our dry stock areas are growing as much as everything else, to try and climb out of the hole we're in sooner than later. Whereas potentially we'd just target that on the milking platform, usually coming out of winter. So yeah, just trying to find bits of extra feed where we can.
Yeah, you mentioned you've been standing the cows off because. From memory, you haven't got any sort of specific standoff facilities like a standoff pad or a feed pad. So how are you managing that? Are you put them on the yard or put them on the races?
No, primarily all on the yard. And it's like usually it's only our heavier cows. So all our mixed stage cows, our heifers are still in their own mob with our lighter cows. And so it just depends on when the rain's going to come through. So sometimes they'll be on the yard overnight. And then other times they'll be on the yard during the day. Because of the ash soil we've got and the topography, it's a sort of a reasonably rolling hills. The water disappears pretty quickly when it comes. So as long as we can keep the cows off it for that piece of time, we can get back on it relatively quickly. So it's just picking the best time to take them off. We haven't had any. I think we did one back to back, so out for a feed and then back on for a second night. But otherwise it's sort of been just one night every now and then, or one day every now and then, rather than every night coming off sort of thing. So yeah, the ash soil is definitely drained.
What time are you taking them off and putting them back on the pasture?
So sort of 5 o'clock, 5 to 8. So 5 at night to 8 in the morning, or Caleb, our manager, brought them off the farm at 5 in the morning the other morning when he woke up, saw the rain was coming through. So he pulled them off and we put them back out on the pasture about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So trying a minute. Like I hate cows on concrete, and also on the races. So I think if we've got to go anywhere, it's on the concrete, just on clean concrete. So at least I know that this sort of feet, as long as I've kept the yard clean of stones and stuff, then the feet are sort of relatively looked after, versus on the races that we'll end up having to sort of fix up. And if we don't have to get everything on get everything off, then like I said, it's usually just the heavier cows that come and stand off for a while.
Yep. Okay. What about you, Bart? Because you're on probably sand your soil there and probably haven't had as much rain sort of over Yarra way as we've had sort of other side of the Waikato. Have you had the standing cows off, or are you making mud there?
Yeah, made a little bit of mud, but I've taken them off about 5 times since the 1st of June. I do it sort of similarly as Woody there. Like I actually do 2-day breaks here every winter. So the minute the cows are dried off, they go on 2-day breaks, and that it actually works quite well with standing cows off. But I don't think I've ever taken them off during the day, but it's usually during the night. They usually go off at, depending when the rain comes. The worst one this year was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and back on the pasture the next day at 7. So yeah, all on the concrete. Some usually the heifers, the young stock go on the race. I've got Jersey cows, which are predominantly better at everything, but definitely on their feet. I think I had 2 lame cows last season, and I haven't had one this season yet. So, but yeah, you do that too many times on the races, and your actual race stuffs out too. So I think they were on there twice, but usually on the yard, on a clean yard. And 5 times this season, 3 times last season. But they never really go. If I stuff up and I get a black break, they never really go into the mud. The first inch on the sandy soil, they never really bugger it up too much. Whereas I was on Pyra before here, and you could look. It would almost look like a bloody Southland winter crop by the time if you didn't take them off. So it's a little bit different here, but that's just because of the area.
Yeah. And like if it stays wet and you got your milking mobs, your biggest mob, will you consider taking those off, or are they just getting a big enough area and not going to make a mess? Was it just the dry cows you're standing off? Yeah,
well, it'd probably be a good conversation to have later on with your spring rotation planner. But at the moment, I should be on an 80-day spring. 80 days, it says on my spring rotation planner, but I'm actually gone to a 70-day just because it is kind of wet. I don't think I will ever put my milkers on the yard. I'd rather buy a unit load of feed in the end of the day, I think, because I'm not really keen on that, to be honest. It's the same as going back to taking your springers and dries off. If I take my springers off, I take them through the shed first. And if I think one's going to calve overnight, I take them out and put them on the paddock. But I'm not really keen on getting the milkers off. I'll try my best to. I'd rather roll the fence up and deal with the consequences later on.
Yeah. What about you, Michael? Yeah. Do you take milkers off as well? Because
same. Yeah, same as Bart. I'd rather cut down the area that I'm giving to the rest of the herds, the dry cows, put them on the yard or something like that, and try and save the area for the milkers. Yeah, basically I'll target the paddocks that I'm grazing. So ones that I know that are more at risk, so lower lying, some of the flatter stuff, we'll just bypass those paddocks and come back to them because we know that the water hangs around in those paddocks for a bit longer. But with the areas sort of expanding each day, then it'd have to be pretty dire to put the milkers on. It's something that we've done before back when we were down in Canterbury, but that was sort of like I say, that the extreme conditions. Really, we don't have the facilities here to look after them, so I'd prefer them to be out on the paddock. And if it meant that it was a sacrifice paddock, then that's what we'd have to do. But preference is not to have the milkers on the yard.
Yeah. And so, what are you sort of feeding levels at the moment, Michael? In terms of your dry mob and springer mob, I assume you have started calving.
Yep. So we got 30 in now. Of course, they all decide to come when the rain comes. But our milkers are on about 16 kilos. Sort of 13 out on the paddock and 3 through the shed. Our dry cows are on 2 kilos of straw and about 10 of grass. Our heifers, every now and then the heifers will come through the dairy shed and get some meal. Just depends on how close they are to the shed, but generally they're on about 10 of grass. and depending on if they're going to be tight for a night, we might throw them out of bale, but otherwise just straight grass for our heifers. Yeah, so it's trying to keep it nice and simple. But through the winter, we had about 3 kilos going into our heifers every day through the dairy shed, just because we couldn't source baleage. So got the cheapest form of non-PK feed through, and just basically one, train them through the shed, so that's really helpful this time of year. But two, just sort of sat there and watched them eat for 8 minutes, and then, or not quite 8 minutes, 4 minutes a row, and then let them go, sort of thing. So bit of extra time, but it was what we had to do because we couldn't find any extra baleage around the place. Yeah.
Yep. And the non-PK feed, is that because was Sinlane, that's one of the
yep. Yeah. So we supply them. It's our choice not to feed the feed palm kernel. It's sort of something that Susie and I have always done, and so just use a feed called Hypro Energy that we get through Castlegate James, and they sort of just a bit of a mix of everything, but it's a safe feed that we can put into the cows and ramp them up to 4 kilos real fast if we need to. And same thing, we've got a few goats on farm, so they always enjoy a few buckets being fed their way as well, sort of thing. So but same thing with the calves, we can put it in feeders and feed it out to them sort of ad lib if we wanted to. But yeah, it's sort of something that just fits the system that we want to run.
Yep. Okay. And Bart, what's your sort of feed levels at the moment for the different mobs?
So I do things on square meters usually, but my milkers are getting about 100 square meters each, going into 3,000 cover. So they're getting offered about 15 kgs, and they're getting a kg of palm kernel up until the 1st of August, when my last trailer load of palm kernel infusion comes over, and I might give them a little bit more. We'll just see. At the moment, they're very happy. And then my clostrums are getting offered 14 with a kg of palm kernel. They're actually leaving a little bit behind. And then my dries, they're sort of on that 7 to 8 kgs. I work on a spring rotation planner where the milkers are the most important ones. So I look after the milkers. They're at 100 squares. Clostrums go to 80 squares. And whatever's left is gone to the rest. And whatever needs topping up goes to those springers. So that's sort of how I do it. And that seems to work together with my spring rotation planner. So yeah, that's where we're at. But about 7, 8 for the springers, and 15 offered for the milkers, plus a kg palm kernel.
Okay, thank. I just got a question from Kate there, Kate Dawson, and just I assume it's for you, Michael, because it came through just after you were talking about. Like, why do you not feed hay to the heifers?
So the main reason originally was because we needed to put a bit of weight on them. Just coming out of that autumn and having them on farm with the rest of the stock, they were a bit light as well. So because they were getting the grass and the grain through the shed, it never fell into their diet. And plus, we're having to buy it in. It was reasonably expensive. So just trying to target into the cows because they chew through feed a bit faster. And I forgot to say that we're like Bart with our R2s that we do. We give them a 2-day break usually when we're feeding to them, just to try and make sure that they're at least for one of those days they're getting really well fed. But we've sort of found that the hay's better into the cows because it keeps them more content, and especially if we're holding them a bit tighter, just fills them up. So that's the reason why we've gone that way.
Okay, and a question from Greg, just around cow preference. Would a cow prefer to stand on concrete or stand in some wet, soft ground?
For me, it depends on, I suppose the paddock that they're in. But basically, the main reason we do it is to look after the pastures and stop the pugging, and ultimately that favours into the cow's well-being anyway, because you sort of see them if you left them on some paddocks, especially on some real heavy rain nights, the damage they do to the paddock, but also just the the conditions that they're standing in is not nice for them. There's more chance of mastitis infection getting into the udder, more chance of getting foot rot on those cattle because they are standing in that wet ground. So as much as we're doing it for the environment, I believe we're doing it for the cows as well. But that's, the way I look at it.
Yeah, I guess you're right there. Like standing cows on conch is not ideal. If you had a standoff pad or a feed pad, that's the
it's the dream.
A better option. But if you haven't got one,
yeah.
It's going to be going to weigh up between your pasture damage and a bit of discomfort for the cows. And
and it means that we can feed those cows better the next round because that paddock will be growing as soon as we get back on it, or as soon as that rain buggers off. It'll be growing away. Whereas if we do the damage, it's sort of at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks longer for that paddock to start coming back again, and even then it's probably only 75% of what it was. So in the long run, the cow gets the benefit from having more pasture available to her.
No, I think it's bang on. And some of the trials that were done a few years ago just showed that a single pugging event just reduces pasture regrowth in that paddock for up to 60 days. So you come back in those paddocks until the end of September and they're still struggling.
Yeah,
it also knocks your earthworm numbers down. It reduces nitrogen fixation. It just you really want to avoid pasture damage if you can. So keep the questions coming. Just type away into the chat function there, whether you're on Facebook or watching via YouTube. So you both mentioned a spring rotation planner and sort of speeding the round up. How does that sort of work in practice? Bart, so you mentioned you're working on a per meter squared basis for your cows. So what sort of round did you start on at the start of winter, and what were you going to end up at sort of at balance state?
The spring rotation plan is a funny one. It used to work quite well when I had low 6 week and calf rates, and the quicker your cows calve, the harder it gets to stay on that. Well, I mean, it's not hard if you want to buy feed in, but having sort of been on a system one, you sort of need to have a lot of grass, but not too much. So I print off, I go to DairyNZ, oh, you've got it there. I use that tool. But so I go from 100 days to balance stage, which around here is about 10 September. But in reality, I actually start off with a 130-day round because of my high 6 week and calf rate. I calf so quickly and I have so many milkers all of a sudden. I just cannot stick to that spring rotation planner. So starting at a 130-day round in practice and then having my actual spring rotation planner from DairyNZ on 100, it all evens out sort of quite nicely. And that seems to work for me. I do calculate 10 days in my spring rotation planner where I can veer off that spring rotation planner in cases like what we've had in the last week, where I should have been on an 80-day round, or 83 actually today, but yesterday I was on a 70-day round, right? So you sort of calculate, and a spring rotation planner is sort of a tool. It's not, of course, concrete, but if I stick to my spring rotation planner, I've never had no grass at the end of it, meaning I'm only top 50. And I find that if I do not have a spring rotation planner, I cannot see far enough away or ahead of myself to be able to make decisions. So this is why this spring rotation planner is probably the best tool on the DairyNZ website that I've used for 18 years. And once I didn't, and I got into shit big time, and I had to buy feed in. So bloody hell, I went straight back onto that spring rotation planner. So yeah, it works for me like every single time. Yeah,
I guess it's a tool that's sort of deceptively simple. But it works, and the idea is to stop you going too fast, too early, give the grass a chance to regrow before you head them back into the paddock. It's very tempting if you got a low pasture cover to give the cows a bigger area and you end up going faster than you should.
Yeah, and being on a system one, you can't make too many stuff ups because like there's no option to sort of buy anything in. So you sort of got to, if you stick to that, again, like it's never failed me. So by the time I hit the 10th of September, I open the bastards up. I open them up and then she's all go, right? Like I don't have to look back and where same as every year on a system one that we have on the 1st of August, I already have 6 hectares of silage out, and those are my summer crop paddocks that I've already, like, automatically without fail, I have to take them out to at least have some silage and get going. So again, that spring rotation planner comes in real handy.
Yeah, the spring rotation planner gives you a straight line, but depending on the farm situation, the straight line may not be the ideal way of doing it. And the way you're doing it, because you've got a very fast calving, you actually speed up a little bit earlier to start with and then sort of hit back on the line. Whereas a farm who may have, say, dry cows grazing off, you may stay on that line around for longer. And then when the dry cows come up, then speed up. So, you do need to sort of adjust a little bit for your farm. Yeah. What about you, Michael? How do you sort of start the long round and sort of end up sort of speeding up?
So we coming off of milking, we sort of on a 50-day round, basically going through May, and then we dropped to a 75-day round. But like I said, we don't because we got the runoff. We sort of, that gives us a bit more flexibility with covers that we can carry around there as well. And so generally sort of start calving on around a 70-day round, and that's our break evens about 10 to 15 days later than Bart. So we're about the 25th of September. Still use area per day, so hectare per day, but across the whole platform. And it's up to, but what we do is, if we're getting a period of dry weather through, and especially if we've got good covers in the paddock that we're in, we will stick on a per kilo basis, even if we know that we're sort of, if we know that we're undercutting that area per day graze, because we know that just is going to buy us extra days further down the track. So it's a rule for us to not go faster than that, but doesn't mean we can't go slower if the opportunity's there. And it just depends on feed supplement levels on farm as to what that goes into. So with the hay or the ryegrass straw that we brought up out of Canterbury, that we know that's slightly over what we're going to need to finish off the rest of the spring. So if the opportunity comes through that we can slow down through some of the longer covers, then we will, to make sure that gives us that little buffer near the end, when we're, like you say, the sort of opportunities there to sort of open them up, but you're teetering on the edge at the time. Hopefully that sort of buys us a bit more cover or area to sort of make that a bit more of an easier decision for us at that stage. So, but yeah, we still, as much as we're probably not as religious as we once were around following the spring rotation planner to the nth degree on the numbers, it still gives us that very much that basic line of don't go faster than this, which is what we sort of stick to. But as to who gets what area on the day, it does come down to sometimes how much pasture's in the paddock. Just we need to manipulate that around, especially this year, just with our paddock sort of coming back a little bit more inconsistent than they have done in the past.
Yep. And then top them up with the supplements if need be.
Yeah, that's right. The milkers is easy because we can just we will put that in through the shed, so they're not getting anything other than in shed feeding. So easy to hold them to the round and just top them up through there. It's more the dry cows, between our dry cow of cows and dry cow of R2s, as to how we manipulate that area. And if we want to get an extra day out of a paddock, then we might feed them a little bit more and slow them right down. Or if there's only sort of 0.1 or 0.2 of a hectare left in a paddock, then we might go a bit faster that day, but we'll catch that area back up further down the track. Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about looking after the cows and looking after the pasture. So what about sort of looking after people on the farm? Because it can be quite demoralising if you sort of putting wet weather gear on so every day and not getting much sunshine at the moment. So how are you looking after yourself or looking after sort of people on the farm? I'll start with you, Bart.
Damn it! Start with me. I was going to bloody say what he was going to say. No, I honestly don't do much, to be honest. It's just me and my wife here, so we make our own wee fun, I guess. Make sure we have, plenty of rest. Don't get off farm too much, but get a lot of dishes done. Have time to have plenty of sex, plenty of eating, plenty of rest, and I usually seem to get through all right. It's honestly. Can I have a coffee? Yeah. That's literally about it. That's the one thing.
You mentioned it.
Going back to what he said earlier on is having all the staff. It did get you off farm more often because there was plenty of staff around. Whereas with these smaller farms, especially 210 cows, it is harder to get off farm. But yeah, the stresses of not having staff is a lot better. But you're probably the wrong person to ask, actually, because I don't do much. I don't go to too many things. But we have set up this Monday night. Did you organise
a Friday afternoon catch-up earlier on with neighbours?
Yeah, so we've set up this wee Monday night drink in the sort of Springdale area, Springdale Waikato. And it's every Monday night at 6:30. Usually goes till about 7:30, 8:30 every week. Every Monday it's a different farm. And it's just a beer or two. It's never anything crazy or anything, but it's sort of got organised around a time where I think, I especially was kind of stressed of looking towards calving, and I thought, shit, maybe I just put a message out and see if anyone wants to have a beer, and that sort of has done that, and it's actually been really good just to get off farm. But later on in the season, me and my wife bought a V8 last season, and we quite like cruising around. Just doing the odd few things, but not too much.
Yeah. I guess that getting off the farm can be critical, because if for a small operation like you can just be head down, arse up the whole time, and not actually connecting with people outside the farm, and talking to other farmers, you see in the same situation.
Right, and that's probably why we took this job on, because it was sort of so we run all the cows are on twice a day until Christmas time. All the heifers with a few skinny cows and stuff are on once a day, and then at Christmas time we're going full complete once a day. So you couldn't call me off my feet all day long working at all. Like it's not milking 1,800 cows in Cliffvale and South Otago, getting up 3:15 to go and milk and not being home at 7 o'clock at night. This is just get up at 5:30 and you can be home at bloody 4, right? Like, so to say that, I'm head down, ass up, working all day long, that's not really true either. But so I get plenty of time during the day. Put it that way.
Yeah. And what about you, Mark?
Look, we I think what Bart says sort of rings true. Like I suppose we came up here and we knew we were going to struggle for the same sort of flexibility that we had from when we were running the large team sort of thing. So we'd sort of come in with a plan from day dot of once a day to make sure that once a day full season, to make sure that we could spend time with our kids, to go to school events and stuff like that. And like this time of year, it definitely helps with that. I think, but the first year we learned a lot of lessons. We were trying to change too much on the farm. And so one of the key things that we sort of now live to is basically sort out what are the absolute non-negotiables throughout the day. And so for us at the moment, it's milking the cows, Bobby's on the truck at a certain time, kids off to school at a certain time. And then the rest of it sort of was basically, if you didn't get, apart from feeding stock, if you didn't get something done in the day, don't stress about it. You just wait till the next day that you can get it done. And so you just sort of work on what your non-negotiables are for the day. And I think once you tick all those off, you're sort of taking a huge load off your shoulders already, and then you can start sort of focusing on where to best put your time after that. And yeah, I mean, we've also taken the step of, we've got a little bit busier on farm, taking on another business that gives us a little bit of outside income, which has then meant that we've been able to employ a manager onto the farm full time. It's his first season, so we're still very much involved in terms of helping him understand the farms and where to best sort of put his time into things around the place. And so yeah, and we still do all the young stock work as well, sort of thing, and with the goats and stuff. So yeah, but we sort of said the other day, it's probably something we should have done from day dot, was bringing the help through the spring. We'd always tended to bring in the help through the summer to get us away for a break then. But I think sometimes you're that exhausted by that stage, then you sort of start questioning yourself as to why you do what you do. And I think, yeah, it's probably putting somebody into our system when potentially that question sort of starts creeping in, is the right time to do it, sort of thing. So just, yeah, I don't know. It depends what that support looks like, and it looks like can look different for different people. But for us, yeah, it's sort of a chance for us to give somebody else an opportunity to start coming through the industry, but at the same time, make sure that we keep doing what we're doing for years to come, sort of thing. So yeah, but that's the thing. Just probably make sure you're getting the basics done on the day, and then the rest that happens. But otherwise, sort of, yeah, just look for support where you need it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Hey, that's good, guys. I see my time of the 40 minutes is up. So I guess the key sort of take-home message is that both of you guys have had plans. You sort of knew earlier on that you're going to be short of feed, so you put things in place. You got extra feed coming onto the farm to sort of try and fill that gap. You're using the spring rotation plan. You're both using them slightly differently, but it's a handy tool to ensure you're not going through your grass too fast. And that's sort of the worst thing you can do if you're short of feed. So you're limiting the area that's available every day, and then you're putting in supplements on top of that if the cows need it. You're also looking after the pasture, using on-off grazing when it gets very wet. And yeah, you're also sort of looking after yourselves too by just being aware that, like Bart, you've got your sort of Monday afternoon or Monday evening drinks, and Woody, do the jobs you have to do, and don't sort of sweat if some of those smaller jobs don't get done.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess if anyone out there sort of needs any help, yeah, put some something in the chat later on. We'll be sort of keep an eye on that, or get hold of myself or one of my colleagues. In terms of getting off farm, there are some events coming up. We've got Breakfast on Us happening through August and early September, so keep an eye out for those. It's just something we're putting on with the dairy companies, and we'll be sort of events or starting up again in early August. But if you've got any issues or want to talk to anything further, just feel free to reach out and give myself or one of my colleagues a call. So if there's no further questions coming through, I'll hand back over to Anne-Marie.
Thanks, Frank. And yeah, that's such an important message to reach out, but also reach out to your neighbours and check in on them, because sometimes when you're in the thick of it, reaching out is really hard to do, and you feel like you're a bother or a pain, or everybody else is busy. So if you can check in on your mates as well, it goes both ways, doesn't it? But DairyNZ is definitely there for help, and I know Frank loves a good yarn and a coffee, so you can definitely reach out. Hey guys, thank you so much for a really informative chat, Frank, Woody and Bart. It's been great eavesdropping on you guys, and we really appreciate your time, your sharing of your knowledge and your learnings and your actual experiences on farm and what works for you and what doesn't. Thank you once again to our Smash sponsors, DairyNZ, FMG, Balance, Pioneer, Rabobank, and LIC. Couldn't do it without you guys. Make sure you follow our Facebook page as well. You might think you already do, but possibly you don't, because Facebook decided it didn't like us and we had to have a whole brand new page. So make sure you actually do like our Smash Facebook page. And you can also register at our website as well to stay informed, smallerherds.co.nz. Join us for our next online event, Thursday the 25th of August at 12:30, when Wade Bell will catch up with Matthew Zondera. Now, he farms at Tipoi in the Waikato, and we're staying with the subject of feed, but this time looking ahead to summer. It's going to be here before we know it, and we'll all get a well-deserved dose of vitamin C. I'm Anne-Marie Case-Miller. We'll see you next time. Ka kite anō.